All right, hey traders, TG Watkins here. Let's see if we looks like we got everything up and running. And yeah, we'll dive into this. Remember over here at simplertrading.com/Moxie if you guys are interested in the Moxie indicator, how it works. And then I also had some people last week asking if the Moxie indicator was available on, tablets or iPhones, iPads, anything else like that. And for Thinkorswim, it's not. A lot of custom indicators for Thinkorswim don't work on their mobile platforms. I think it's a structural difference in that sort of way. But if you guys are interested and you want that on a more of a mobile type platform, you can come over to stockcharts.com or TradingView. We have the Moxie indicator on both of those platforms. So, and yeah, they got all the tools and everything like that. So yeah, go check them out if you guys want to do something like that. And then if we come over here and take you over to the Twitter space, although I guess X now, it's kind of funny trying to see what everybody's going to be saying about that, and do we still call it tweets or whatever? And yeah, there are a lot of funny jokes going around about that. But anyway, the other day I posted something over here about the Moxie indicator with the SPY, and basically showing that for oops, that's not what I want. Showing that for how far down the Moxie indicator is below zero, and that there has been no sort of positive divergence or anything else like that yet, that this is basically going to take a while for things to kind of get better. At some point, we'll put in a low and we'll bounce and all that kind of stuff. I'm not considering, well, that first move up, that first bounce is just going to be a bounce. It's not going to be like the next swing long from what I would normally look at based on the rules. And yeah, the fact that this Moxie indicator is down here so far says we've got a fair amount of time until this thing kind of, turns back up and all that kind of stuff. So let me then show you real quick what that looks like. I do have a few past examples, and you can see right in through here on the SPY on the hourly chart, look how far below zero the Moxie indicator was. And you can see, look how long, even when it stopped going down, look how many days it took of just going sideways before we finally got an up move. And then you can see the next thing, kind of a little bit more similar to what we're dealing with right now, to where price has just been getting pushed down quite a bit. And you can see that even though there was a bounce and maybe another little bounce in through there, they weren't quite ready. They weren't the swing long entry, the continuation to the upside. And you can see that, look how far down below zero the Moxie indicator was, and look how long it took for the indicator to finally cross back over zero and cross back over zero. So if we then take that information, we come over to where we are now, you can see, we're still a ways off. So hey, at least now the Moxie indicator looks like it's starting to slow down its descent. It's going sideways, hasn't quite started going up yet. So that's what we're going to have to look for, is to see when that indicator starts to trend up. And really don't expect that the market's going to be able to go up or go long on a continuation basis until basically that Moxie indicator is above zero, or nearing zero and then above zero. So yeah, it's going to take a little bit of time. Nice, Nasir. What kind of bikes are you fixing? Are we talking about pedal bikes or motorbikes? I got a electric fat tire bicycle that I converted for Burning Man, and I don't think I'm going to be going anytime soon. So I'm going to be trying to sell that one if anybody's interested in it. Burning Man is right around the corner, so always a good time to see if you need to sell anything. All right, so we got the SPY there, and then we can kind of look. Yeah, nice. You got some new pedal bikes. Well, that's fun. My wife bought me a bike. Let's see, if maybe I think it was last summer, and we're gonna be using. We just like to go. They're actually in kind of a downtown Kirkland area. There is a lot of bars and wineries available on bike, so they have really good trails that lead to all of them. All right, let's take a look at the internals. The internals, as far as the 50-day SMA, the number of stocks over the 50-day SMA, has just been getting pummeled, absolutely demolished. And so I kind of thought about this. It's like, okay, well, clearly I don't want to be talking about like, oh, well, we're just going to have to wait for stocks to move up and we're just going to have to do this and things are moving down. Like, that doesn't sound like something that's very interesting today. And so what I thought about is I got to get a quick list of tickers that I'm going to go through, and we can kind of show you how to see that some of these names are going to fall apart using the Moxie indicator and the rules that I have with it. And that way, when you recognize these things, you can either start paring back, take some risk off, exit, anything else like that. And then just kind of from a 30,000-foot view, this is with the number of stocks over their 50-day SMA, this is getting to a point where it was pretty darn overbought. Now, I didn't think that the market was going to necessarily implode quite as abruptly. I thought that actually we're building quite good strength, and I thought, well, okay, we're definitely going to be pulling back. We should expect that. But I thought things were going to kind of settle down, find some support, and move up. Instead, the market has just really, really gotten hit pretty hard, and you can see that with the number of stocks over their 50-day SMA going from 89% to 46%. I mean, basically cut in half. So yeah, things really got knocked down pretty hard, and we can see that through here. Some of the other, well, let me just say the reason behind that is if we look at the DXY, the dollar, you can see that the dollar has just been on a tear for the last 2 weeks or so, right and through here. Let's see, when was that? Actually, for a month. Yeah. So it's been a month that this has been putting pressure on things. So yeah, it's just been up, 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 up. And, we should kind of expect that kind of stuff until something changes. Because right now the dollar is definitely not changing. The dollar keeps moving up. Now, if this were a normal stock, I would start to express some caution up in this area, mostly because it's already had a huge move, and you can see it's kind of coming up into upper resistance, and you can see that this move, and this move are very similar to each other. Okay, that they both move up, and then what I would expect is some sort of pullback, and then we have to figure out if that pullback is into support or not into support. So that's that, and then we can look at the TNX. This is another reason that the market has been under pressure. We can see that the TNX has been moving up. You can see in through here, that just kind of keeps going up. And we are right back to our previous high as far as the TNX. So this will be very interesting to see if the market's going to continue raising interest rates, or if we kind of back off from this upper area and we continue to just trade sideways. We're going to have to watch because we are coming right into that inflection point. All right. So a couple other things. You guys remember, if you're over at YouTube or Facebook, feel free to leave a comment and let me know if there's anything you got any questions or any other things you're looking at. All right, so just as another as an indication or other group of stocks to look at, I do like to look at the ARK ETF. It kind of gives me an idea of like what's going on in certain parts of the area with the market. And not that I've been wanting to trade this, but just wanted to say, hey, it was doing well for a while, but like most everything else, they got pretty overbought. We had a really good run from basically call it the end of May. I mean, you could really see that there's a difference right at the end of May to the end of July. That was a big, big run. And some things started to move even at the beginning of May, like right there. That was the bottom there. So we had a solid 2, maybe you could say 3 months that the market was moving up and on a pretty good clip. And I think that it just kind of tuckered itself out, and now everything's going to have to reset and refresh, and that's kind of what we're dealing with right now. But as far as some of these things that you can note with, say, even ARC, I mean, it was up here at that third ATR, and it's pretty high up there. It needed to pull back, and kind of put on some levels here, and you could see that we're getting, at least now, we're getting about a 618 retracement down to that fib level. And I don't know if it's going to go much further. Like I'll look down at the lower time frames and see if it still has more downdraft. It's possible. These things aren't perfect, but I would assume that this is a pullback in an uptrend. Like I still have a bullish standpoint or the bullish sentiment for the market. It's just, okay, well, it got overbought and now it just needs to kind of come back. Now, of course, a lot of this is pretty deep, and we're talking about a 618% ratio fib pullback, but we still have the weekly 8 over the weekly 21, and we still have the 30 over the 50, and price is still over the 50, and the Moxie indicator was freshly over 0. So, a lot of this looks fine. It's just, okay, well, how much of a pullback is this going to be? And that's kind of what we have to kind of sit back and wait and watch and say, all right, well, we'll guess we'll see. And if we look here with ARC, the pullback started on a double top. Now, maybe you could see that if you just studied price and all that, but if you had the Moxie indicator, this is really the kind of interesting thing right here. You see here how price got up over the hourly 50. Where was the Moxie indicator? It was below 0. And so if the Moxie indicator is below 0 like this, It means it's negative, negative energy, negative momentum. That price should not be going up. It shouldn't be up. It shouldn't be over the 50 SMA. And so what I do is I call this an inverse trampoline move because, for those of you who know my regular trampoline move, like this, that's price below the 50. That's the Moxie indicator above zero. That tells us that this is likely to come in here, dip, and then shoot back up like that, just like a trampoline. So you take that same concept and you just flip it upside down. It's the same rule, just upside down. And look here, you can see price, the Moxie indicator below zero, but price over the 50. Same, but opposite as that. And so we call it an inverse trampoline move. And you can see exactly the same thing. I mean, like, boom, shoot up to the upside, just like a trampoline. Boom, shoot down to the downside, just like an inverse trampoline move. So that was something I kind of thought was interesting and fairly easy to point out. Then we can look at RIVN, Rivian, and we can kind of see the same deal on the weekly chart, like a lot of stuff, a lot of the weekly charts looking very similar. And also there's just a lot of information to be able to glean from the weekly charts. Again, with the whole, overbought situation kind of getting outside of these channels and outside of these things that say, hey, price doesn't like to be up there for too long. So I had people asking me about going long on Rivian right here, and I said, heck no. I said, the big move was already here. That was the big move. And now it's to an area where we're going to be trying to get pennies before we get run over by a steamroller. And so I said, no, thank you. I am not interested in getting Rivian up there. And I think my point was proven because where are we at? All the way back down here. And you can see there's a big gap here between price and the moving average and all that kind of stuff. And so now we're just going to have to see if there will be another opportunity for this thing to move up, because if you look, and this is why I'm optimistic, is because a lot of these things are doing the same stuff to where they are trying. And part of that means that we have the 8 over the 21. Like if you look at this entire trend, look at this downtrend, downtrend trend. This is a bounce and downtrend, downtrend. Nothing's been happening. Nothing constructive to the upside has been happening until we got this. And now you might be looking at this other area, this previous bounce, and you say, oh, well, what about that? Like, no. You'll notice that the 8 is below the 21, different than it is now. So that's kind of what I mean is that at least from a technical structural standpoint, there are changes being made. And so that's why I'm looking at this and saying, oh, I think we're kind of just pulling back and we should go higher eventually. And then if you also look here on the daily and hourly, like you can see just way, way, way overbought. Not interested going long there. And then you can also see a giant gap between price and the daily 50. So what's it doing? It's coming back down to the daily 50. Rivian is doing its part to, let's see if I can come back to this. Rivian is doing its part to help this indicator, this breadth indicator, come down here all the way down to 46%. Okay, because this is the number of stocks over the 50-day SMA. So if you look at Rivian, what is Rivian doing? It is now below its 50-day SMA. So it's going to be, working to help refresh and redo that indicator. And then over here, notice the Moxie indicator. This is really, the Moxie indicator is really trying to teach you and show you, communicate to you what's going on inside of price, the energy, the momentum. So even though price was kind of still moving up a little bit, what was the Moxie indicator doing? Every single day, it was going down, down, down. So this is the kind of thing that the Moxie indicator can help you because it's like, whoa, if you're just looking at price and you're looking at moving averages, you wouldn't see this coming. You would just think, oh, okay, price is holding up and I'll just stay in until it breaks. Well, but the Moxie indicator was telling you, every ounce of energy is getting sucked out of this thing until eventually it's going to pull back down and drop. So that was pretty clear. And then food 2, this is another one. Just from a structural standpoint, I mean, look at that thing. It just went way up. That is, departing Earth's gravity, basically. And at some point, it's going to lose speed and come back down. You could see it's kind of the same thing as Rivian. You guys see how it's kind of the same example and really, really far from moving averages. So we'll see. Maybe it's got another day or two where it can go down, and maybe it will get underneath the daily 50, help reset that breadth indicator. This one, the Moxie indicator, was actually a little bit late, just a little bit late, but it did fire right before it fell off a cliff. So that was another thing to kind of help you out with that one. So that was Futu, SLI. Let's see what we got on this one. Oh yeah, this is a pretty good one. So even though SLI got a little bit choppy, and maybe you'd say, okay, I get it about price being too far away from the daily 50. And so you say, okay, well, something like this, I mean, it's looking pretty good. It's holding up. It looks like it's going sideways. And you know what? It looks like it's coming into the daily 50 SMA, and it should bounce off of that 50, right? That's everything that you'd be looking at normally on that time frame. Well, this is partly why the Moxie indicator is great. And this is also partly why I like to use multiple time frames, because I can't tell on the daily chart that something is, bad is going to happen. To me, this thing looks perfectly fine to where price is coming into the daily 50, looks like it's trying to hold until it just doesn't. But if you look at the Moxie indicator and if you look on the hourly time frame, what did this thing do? It actually gave you a heads up all the way back here, like a week, maybe 2 weeks. Look at this right there. You see how price was trying to pop up over the hourly 50 a few times? Where was the Moxie indicator? The Moxie indicator was below 0 the entire time. So this was telling you, like, look, this is that inverse trampoline move. Price should not be over the 50 if the Moxie indicator is below 0. And so this is why the Moxie indicator really helps me with my trading, and I think it'll help you guys as well. So that was SLI, and trying to help inform you that price is probably not going to bounce off of that daily 50 very well. So we got that, and then I'll do one more here. Then Topspin, I'll take a look at your question there. How about soybean? Now here's another example. I think a lot of you who are in the Moxie room and know all the various things that I teach and show, you guys can see the same reason here. Why did price move down? 50, 250 type maneuver, that kind of stuff. So that kind of makes sense. But look at the hourly chart, and this is where the real key is. Notice here how price was trying to go up. Notice how the Moxie indicator was down. So it wasn't quite an inverse trampoline move. But what you notice is price kept trying to move up, 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 up at a fairly good angle. What was the Moxie indicator doing? Just wasn't really going anywhere. Just not doing much. And that's kind of what you need to pay attention to. Like, why is price going up at this angle, but why is the Moxie indicator looking like that? And that is a form of negative divergence. The Moxie indicators try to talk to you and communicate to you and say, this doesn't look good. Even though I'm above 0 and moving up with you, I'm not going to the same angle. Like, my internal momentum is telling me that it's nowhere near the same kind of momentum that price is actually doing. And so at some point, something's going to catch up and fix those divergences, and that's a negative divergence. And so that negativity is going to catch up to price and pull price down. And you can see there's your Moxie price trigger right there. Yeah, Topspin. Yep, market pullback. Still waiting for it to slow down. I mean, it is not much in sight as far as that goes. I mean, even if we look at the internals, this morning was looking slightly positive, a little bit like that. But man, we just can't catch anything. And Topspin, this is the other thing I was talking to the subscribers the other day about. Look at that. As far as an order flow, bullish, bearish, it has been just terrible. I mean, this is a huge difference than what we were seeing here and here and even here. This is it's a mess. There is not much going on here, and you can see just the majority of tickers continue to just go down. That's the advancers versus decliners. Decliners are outpacing advancers. So yeah, we just keep seeing a bunch of stuff continue to move down. Okay, let's see what you're, so NTR. It's funny, NTR was actually on my list of things to show today. Here was this, yeah, it's actually on my list. So let me show you this. NTR, you have to understand, and this is why I look at the larger time frames, the higher time frames first, because even though NTR was going up, what is the context of the higher time frame? It's still basically in a downtrend. You cannot tell me that this is an uptrend. It's a downtrend. All we can do is talk about and say this would probably get oversold, and there was a gap here between the moving average, and all it wanted to do was get back to that moving average. So this up move was really just a counter trend move. It was a reversion to the mean. Okay, it wasn't actually an up move. It might look that way on the lower time frames, but the big picture says it's not an uptrend. And if you look at the weekly chart, you can kind of see the same thing. It's not in an uptrend. That is clearly angled down. And you can see that the 8 is still below the 21. Now, it might be working on something. Maybe what it's trying to do is create a double bottom in here and maybe it'll go higher later. But it's not happening yet. We need to be careful about that. The other thing is, if you look here on the daily and hourly, very similar to what I showed you guys with ARC and how ARC had that hourly inverse trampoline move. Look right here. It's exactly the same. NTR did exactly the same thing that ARC did. And you can see there's your double top, and there's their big gap between price and the daily 50. There's an inverse elf shoe. There's an inverse trampoline move. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff that this thing was lining up for that told us that it was likely to pull back. And so very, very clear signals with the Moxie indicator here on that. Brighter side, yeah, I got to get back to I think you sent me another email, so I got to get that. And then top spend, same thing with CC. Look, there's your Moxie price trigger, and then there's your inverse trampoline move. So yet again, another stock that, popped up and ran just like so many other stocks. So many stocks had a really good run over the last couple months. Everything needs to take a break and catch up and take a breather. And they're not just taking a breather; they're just kind of pulling back hard. And you can look here, even with CC, it just got really overbought. So great move, but now it's going to have to come back down. So we're going to need to. We just got to be patient and wait and see how long this pullback is going to go and where it's going to end up. And that's kind of we're just hanging out until that happens. Let's see. Then MDT. Yeah, there's not much going on here. You can see it's trying, but it's still just kind of going sideways. There's really not much to work with here. Yeah, and we have earnings coming up. I wouldn't do much. Yeah, nothing to talk about with MDT. And then SLB, a little bit better. This looks good. But top spin, remember I showed you. I've shown you ARC and what was it? NTR and I think a couple other ones. What do we got here? We have a pretty big gap. And what do we have here? We have a potential inverse trampoline move on the hourly chart. So if you're long SLB, be a little bit careful. Be careful on this one. And if you look, the other thing is if we look at USO, since energy and all that kind of stuff, this is a big move. Yet again, these things, we've had some pretty good moves out there, but if you realize what we just experienced with the market and a lot of these other names that have been running over the last 2 months, what is USO doing? It's had a really good run. Does it look a little overbought? Yeah. How about the Moxie indicator? Look, we got price up. Look what the Moxie indicator is doing. Just down, down, down. It looks like that, what was it, Rivian that I showed you? Rivian was going up, but the Moxie indicator kept going down. We're starting to see the same thing with USO. Schlumberger also has that negative inverse trampoline move. And just like I showed you on some of these other names, look at this, pretty overbought. It's had a really, really good move. It's going to have to take a break, and it looks like it's wanting to start taking that break now. So yes, I would be very careful with the energy sector. John, yeah, so CVX, since we're kind of talking that area, let's take a look. Well, that's interesting. CVX looks like it wants to run right into the underside of its weekly 50. Maybe it can go over it, but I would just be aware of that. And you can see here it is still underneath its monthly 10. So not much going on here. Looks mostly sideways, not in an uptrend. Maybe there's a double bottom here. So if you're trying to trade this, definitely don't stay in it if it breaks that double bottom. And if we come over here, yeah, just kind of messy. I see what you're kind of pointing out, Moxie price trigger right there. If this is going to work, I would say that price needs to continue holding the daily 50 and get over the daily 200. If it can't do that, I'd probably pass. But if it can, okay, then it seems like it might have some work. It might be able to do something. Let's see, Thomas. So if the SPY closes below the daily 50 again, would you sell any medium-term holdings and get back in later? Well, I think you should look at your particular holdings because some things are doing better than others. Look at EDR, for example. If the SPY got below the daily 50 again, would I want to sell EDR just because it's a medium-term holding and whatever? I wouldn't make that decision just because of what the SPY is doing. EDR looks fine. Now, if the SPY went below and let's say I'm like ASAN, yeah, well, I would sell ASAN because you can see this one is not doing well. You can see it's started to break down and just continues to move down, something like that. So I can't correlate necessarily what the SPY is doing to should I keep my individual stock. There are still stocks that are going up when the market's going down. It's just there are far and few between. If 80% of the stocks follow the market, well, then you only have maybe 20% of stocks to choose from that are not going down right now. And not going down doesn't mean going up. It can also just mean going sideways. And then, John, is there a scan for when the Moxie crosses the zero line at a previous close? No. No, we don't have that. No. I think the only thing you can do is if you go to the Moxie watch list thing that we've put in a couple things like that, you can have a 2-day and a 5-day look back period on your watch list. So I think that is where you can kind of find that information. Nice guys. Let's see. Nasir. We need Moxie floss. Yeah, we'll get all sorts of branded stuff. Oh, so Thomas, so SPY itself. Well, it would have been better to get rid of it to anything. If anything, if in the S&P SPY, your longer term, yeah, it would have been better to realize that you're getting into an area that was getting overbought. So instead of being reactive, maybe be a little bit more proactive. So if you were trading something, say specifically SPY, you should have known that this area was getting pretty overbought. Look how long it had been since price touched the daily 50. Okay, that is a long time to be going up that way. With a big gap underneath here. That's a long time. And then you can see here price was riding the 30 ATR, and then you can even see here we started getting an inverse trampoline move again with the whole inverse trampoline move situation. You can see that even on the SPY. And then you could see here that we were starting to get up here to the 30 ATR. These were all indications that the SPY was getting pretty top heavy and likely to pull back. And this is everything we've been talking about. We just kept talking about this and saying this is going to happen. I didn't know to what extent. And then you could see here that we talked about how the number of stocks over their 50-day SMA were at 0.89, so 89%, which is the highest it's ever been. And so everything was on one side of the ship, and then it was going to correct. So I would have been a little bit more proactive if you're trading the SPY for something like that. It's the same thing about if you look at the Nasdaq. And actually, let me look at the semis because I have this drawn better. There you go. So the semis, you could see that we have this linear regression channel. You see how it was up at this upper range. Hey, at some point, it's going to pull back and break down and start going to the other lower channel. So instead of saying, "Oh, I'll exit when it breaks this," maybe be a little bit proactive up here. Because there were a lot of clues and a lot of things that said, "Hey, the market's going to start pulling back." We just didn't know to what extent or how broad-based and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, Nasir, it's true. Every YouTuber and all that kind of stuff, everybody's got T-shirts and stuff. So we all have our merch, right? All right. Oh boy, still in Palantir, huh? No. Kind of the same thing I was telling Thomas is you got to look, what is this situation? What's the overall deal with Palantir? It had a huge move. It was one of the leaders. It was one of the first names that took off, and it had a huge move. They don't usually last that long. Okay, they don't stay up there. And you can see it was really just pushing that third ATR on the weekly chart. And then it basically happened on earnings. It tried pushing up a couple times. You can see that we're getting a little spurty up there, and just it's getting pretty far. And look, it had never touched the daily 50 this entire time, right? Not until here. So I would have been a little bit more proactive. I definitely would not have wanted to hold that over earnings. I just didn't think that there was enough room to the upside to even account for any kind of earnings pop. And sure enough, there wasn't. So I would have been a little bit more proactive and tried probably getting out around here. The fact that you're out here now, maybe it'll work out. The market's already spent a lot of time pulling back. Let's see, Palantir is not quite to the 21, so it could go down further. But I kind of feel like we should be close to a market bounce. And the only thing I can also point you towards is if you look at Apple, it's down, but it kind of not going down any further. And so maybe Palantir could do the same. But honestly, when they're moving down, when they're underneath their moving averages, you really don't know what's going to happen until it starts to happen. So I would say right now the trend is down and it could keep going down further. And if you don't want that, then you got to get out. And you can always get back in when things go up. Okay. And so, I mean, the best case scenario when something's going down is it just kind of doesn't go down any further. But we have nothing telling us that it's going to go up yet. So that's kind of the only thing we can do to talk about that. All right, guys. I'm going to leave you there. For those of you in the Moxie group, let's come back here to Twitter. We're going to I'm going to be in the options room and in the Moxie room in basically, I guess 30 minutes. So yeah, we got that figured out for you, and we'll see you guys soon again. But remember, anybody else out there in YouTube and Facebook land, I see quite a few of you logged in there. You can always come over to the Twitter page and check out that and see what kind of things we're posting about. All right, guys. Thanks again, and